In this video, you'll learn exercise tips and a plan to lower insulin resistance. At the end, I'll show you my actual workout schedule so you can mimic parts of it or the whole thing if you'd like. I'm Dr. Morgan Nolte, founder of Zivli. We help you lower insulin resistance for long-term weight loss and better health. Exercise is one of the pillars that we teach inside our program. And today is a review of how exercise impacts insulin resistance, the best types of exercise for insulin resistance, and how to get started even if you hate exercise. Insulin resistance is where your cells become less responsive to insulin. This ultimately leads to rising blood sugar levels, type 2 diabetes, and a host of other medical issues. To appreciate the tips today, here's a brief overview of why moving and muscle are important to prevent and lower insulin resistance. I'd suggest not skipping ahead. When you really understand why exercise is so important, you will make it a higher priority in your life. But if you don't like understanding how things work, you can refer to the timestamps in the description and jump to the part where I start talking about walking after meals. Your muscles have an important role for maintaining stable blood sugar levels and lowering insulin resistance. The more healthy muscle you have, the more room your body has to store glucose after a meal. Skeletal muscle is the largest organ in the body by mass. It's also responsible for about 80% of glucose uptake after a meal. In other words, your muscles act as a sponge to soak up glucose from your bloodstream after you eat. This process can happen with or without insulin. Think about your muscles being a big sports stadium, and all the people waiting to get in are the glucose from your food. The gates that people go through are called GLUT4 transporters, and the gatekeepers represents the insulin that unlocks the gate. The bigger your stadium, the more people you can let in before those people go somewhere else. So the more muscle you have, the more glucose you can let in before it heads towards fat storage. If you are sensitive to insulin, you have your gates open wide and glucose is quickly flowing into your muscles after a meal. You'll see a quick spike and drop in your blood sugars after a high-carb meal. If you're resistant to insulin, your gatekeepers are lazy and you have few gates open, so glucose hangs out in the bloodstream longer, just like people waiting in line to get into the stadium. That's why diabetics often have elevated blood sugar levels longer after a meal. Their glucose is wanting to get in somewhere. There are two ways to open the gates in this analogy, or two ways to get GLUT4 transporters to your cell membrane so glucose can come in. The first is insulin. That again is the gatekeeper. Insulin binds to its receptor on the muscle cell. The GLUT4 transporter moves from inside the cell to the cell membrane, and the glucose slides on in like my kids slide down the tube slide at the park, or in this clip, down the hill at the zoo. The other way the gates can open is through muscle demand. Just moving your body, going for a walk, walking up and down stairs, riding your bike, lifting weights, dancing. Any muscle demand for energy can make the GLUT4 transporters go from inside your muscle to the cell membrane so glucose can come in. That is why going for a walk immediately after a meal is the first recommendation we make for lowering insulin resistance. This works especially well if you had a high-carb meal or if you had dessert. If you have less blood sugar circulating around after a meal because your muscles have soaked it up, you will need less insulin to get that glucose into your cells. And lower insulin levels is what it takes to lower insulin resistance. So if you don't already walk after meals, this is an excellent habit to start. Even if you just walk after one meal a day, maybe the meal that has the most carbs, do that. Once you've started moving after your main meal, let's say a 10-minute walk once a day, we'd encourage you to increase the frequency of your movement. Zone 2 activity is a great place to start. Cardiovascular exercise intensity is often determined by heart rate zones. While there are different methods out there, we prefer the 5-zone method. Zone 1 is very easy. Zone 5 is an all-out sprint or maximal effort. Zone 2 activities have a moderate level of perceived exertion. You're able to carry on a conversation with someone with some difficulty and have a noticeable increase in your sweat and breathing rate. Examples may include a brisk walk or bike ride, walking hills, or step training. Zone 2 is great for stress relief and blood sugar regulation, especially when done right after eating. We recommend 30 to 60 minutes of cardiovascular activity 5 days a week. This can be a combination of Zone 2 or higher intensity activities. Now, this may sound like a lot, but you can break it up throughout the day. And remember, any movement is better than none. So if you're at a place where moving 5 minutes a day is the goal, then that's the goal. Resistance training is also important for insulin resistance and blood sugar regulation. You may be in a season of life where you are only willing or able to commit 10 to 30 minutes of movement a day. If that's the case, walk after a meal and use the rest of your limited time to strength train. If all you're doing is cardio, you are missing out on major metabolic benefits because you're not building muscle. You're not increasing your stadium size or the number of gatekeepers. While extended cardio sessions are great and have many benefits, we don't advise you to sacrifice your strength training time for more cardio. You'll simply have a greater long-term return on your investment with strength training. Now, I know there are more barriers to strength training, like the equipment, the know-how to do the movements correctly and prevent injury, the sheer fact that many people enjoy cardio more, and seeing less calories burned during a workout. But regular strength training will greatly improve the quality of your movement, life, and health. For strength training, aim to work all major muscle groups at a moderate to high intensity 2 times per week. If you need to hire a trainer to help you develop some plans, do it. It's well worth the investment. We invested in this total gym so that I can strength train on our rural farm, but you'll have to find what works for you. There are tons of at-home or gym options and resources available for strength training. Stability and flexibility work like yoga, stretching, and Pilates are great and important, but won't do much for insulin resistance except prevent injury so you can continue the other 2 types of activity. So they aren't the focus of this video. Here's a chart that shows my current workout routine that incorporates all 3 forms of physical activity. You'll see a lot on here, but I'm going to break it down top to bottom day by day. And this is not a rigid structure. It's changed over the years based on my work and family responsibilities. It will also change as my physical needs and goals change. You'll see each day I have a goal to walk for 10 minutes after dinner, stretch for 5 minutes in the morning, and stretch again for 10 minutes in the evening. Those are on repeat each day. Currently, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday are my strength days. I have a handful of exercises I do for each major muscle group that we'll cover in a minute. I usually start with my cardio to get some blood flowing about 20 to 40 minutes, and that could be something like rucking or walking while carrying a loaded pack, walking hills, walking with weights in my hands, running, or cycling. Regular walking on a level surface does not get my heart rate up into zone 2, but it might for you. Another reason I do cardio first is because I like it less. I try to do the things that I know I need to do, but don't always want to do first. After I'm done with my cardio, I'll do my weight training. This usually takes 20 to 30 minutes if I'm doing a split schedule like what you see here, or about 40 minutes if I'm doing 2 total body workouts a week. And if I'm doing 2 total body workouts a week, I typically don't do a lot of cardio on those days. I like to start the week with legs. I tend to work them hard and it takes several days for my muscles to recover. You'll notice that I don't like to work the same muscle groups on consecutive days. I give myself at least 1 rest day for that muscle group between strength sessions. Depending on my mood and how many different exercises I do, I'll do about 2 to 4 sets. After a warm-up set, I almost always work at a high intensity or 5 to 10 repetitions per set. I usually pick 2 to 4 exercises to do for the muscle groups each day that I'm strength training. If you're new to strength training, you'll want to do a light to moderate intensity or about 15 to 20 repetitions per set to minimize your risk of injury and let you master your breathing and form. For leg day 1, I'll do exercises that bias the back part of my legs. So these may include squats, leg presses, calf raises, Bulgarian split squats, and hip thrusts. For leg day 2, I focus more on the front side of my legs, so things like quad extensions, squats with raised heels, reverse lunges, and lateral cable pulls for my abductors or side glute muscles. Arm day 1 focuses on the muscles on the back of my torso, so traps, rhomboids, and triceps. I'm doing exercises like rows, flies, and tricep extensions. Arm day 2 focuses on the muscles on the front of my torso. So I'll usually do bicep curls, shoulder presses, bench presses, pull-ups, push-ups, and the like. Obviously, there is overlap in which muscles are worked on the leg and arm days, but this framework helps ensure that I get at least one rest day between and helps vary my exercises. You may have seen on Wednesday I do a VO2 max training session. Now there's a few different ways to do this. You could do high intensity interval trainings where you sprint for 15 to 30 seconds and then take as much time as you need to recover and do that 4 or 5 times. I also do more extended intervals, which is where I'll ride or walk at a normal pace for 4 minutes and then go as hard as I can sustain for 4 minutes for about 4 sets. And this is an advanced form of exercise that we don't recommend people start right away. Dr. Peter Attia states in his book Outlive, he has his patients do about 5 to 6 months just of zone 2 cardio before starting VO2 max training. I did a great episode with Deborah Atkinson specifically talking about training for women over 50 and over 60. And it's really important to note that if you're in perimenopause, some of the types of activity that I talked about, like high intensity interval training or VO2 max training, may not be what's most appropriate for you. So it's important to work with a trainer who really knows what they're talking about so that you can match your exercise intensity to other stresses in your life, because we don't want to exercise too much. That's actually going to be counterproductive to losing body fat and belly fat especially. I hope you found this episode helpful and motivating to start moving your body more, especially right after you eat. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to this channel, check out our coaching and programs below, and watch this video next with 6 science-backed tips to lose body fat and gain muscle.